Welcome back to Embracing New Life, the podcast where we stand at the intersections of discussions on mental health and the church and how we can integrate those two things together in a God-honoring way. And this week we have part 2 of our interview with Sarah Bogdanovich. If you haven't seen part 1, we'd encourage you to go back to last week and reference that episode and then come back and watch this one. But we hope you are enjoying the series where we interview the staff at New Life Resources. And without any further ado, here's part 2 of our interview with Sarah Bogdanovich.
And so going into the process of how we deal with anxiety. And so...
Let's talk a little bit more about that distinction.
Yeah.
So the content, what would content be?
Content could be, situational things that happen. I am anxious about this test or this relationship or... this internal thing that I don't necessarily know if people are thinking about me in these ways, but this is how I'm feeling, and so I'm going to focus so much on that person or that perceived, issue versus,
And so what's the process?
The process is, I'm going to guess this has to more do with physically feeling anxious. And instead of recognizing, I'm just physically feeling anxious and I can just deal with it as physical bodily symptom, I want to subscribe meaning to it so that it makes sense to me. And then because you're not dealing with the root of, you're just physically dealing with anxiety and the process of it, whether it's higher escalation or if there are maybe relational attachment in general, and then that's the process of then let's deal with de-escalating and maybe some of shame messages that might come up or lies or continual things that they might tell themselves that are affecting different situations. So I guess that's more the process of how do I handle anxiety when I experience it.
So we can see that sometimes people will develop understanding of the content or the issue, and they're still anxious.
Absolutely.
That we're needing to deal with the body's response. And many times people have that bodily anxiety reaction, and then they fill in the blanks and come up with an explanation. It may not even be relevant.
And then it just increases anxiety so much more when you try to subscribe meaning to it.
So recognizing being made as a whole, our thinking, our feeling, our bodily reactions, they're so intertwined that we many times need to address the body to calm or comfort the mind, the heart, and the soul.
Absolutely. And so when people come to me, I don't even really focus more on the content of things until we go into how do we de-escalate, how do we deal with the body, because like I said, when you're so escalated, reason, logic, it's not going to exist.
Available.
It's not going to land at all. And so then, and then also realizing that we hold so much in our body. And so then doing like tense and release exercises or feeling, a lot of times with anxiety, then it can feel like I'm feeling helpless or out of control. And so breath work is a huge part of what I do as well to help focus on the process on the body. Because when it feels like you can't control much, at least you can control your breathing.
Yes.
And I found that the best way to affect our heart rate is through our breathing. You want to increase your heart rate, you start, you kind of do that. And then if you want to decrease your heart rate, So even at the end of sessions, when I can tell we're dealing with something a little bit more physically anxious, I try to end our sessions even with just a few breaths in and breaths out.
Slowing the body down.
Yes.
Yeah.
The more slow you are, the more mindful choices you can make.
So there's a passage in the scriptures, be still and know that I am God. This idea of being still, it just doesn't go with anxiety.
Or in our modern world.
It doesn't fit our modern lifestyle. No, it doesn't.
No, not at all.
No.
And I think too, when people think about being still, it's okay. Well, I don't know where my mind's gonna go, and then sometimes there can be shame of like, well, my mind is just racing, and I can't deal with that, and so I must be doing something wrong.
Uh-huh.
But when we do something, even like a body scan, I've even had clients that say, wow, like I'm never stilled that long. And because you're focusing your mind on certain things
Yeah.
too.
Mhm.
And like even like it says in scripture, yeah, meditate on the things of God. And like, and it's not just blank mind, because that's just not,
Yes.
it's just not
Yeah.
realistic.
I think one of the things that you are giving clients in those moments is a sense of agency, right? Because, like you said, some people become so accustomed to lots of things in life, but anxiety in particular, when they're dealing with that they feel driven like a leaf by the wind, you know, and they don't realize that, no, I actually can take control of this moment,
Yeah.
you know, and have an impact on my experience, you know, and so it's great that you empower them to do that.
Yeah. That's been really exciting, is, you know, helping them find their agency. And I remember even way back in my master's days is, you know, we work ourselves out of a job. And so, you know, helping them do that, even journaling is such a great way of like a physical release, and helping them practice, especially even like adolescents and teens, because they don't know, a lot of times their parents don't even know, unfortunately. And so just helping build those skills, build that agency, because I think the more we feel like we can control the things that we are responsible for,
Yes.
the more sense of, okay, I have hope, things can get better.
Yeah.
And so part of what we also do with treating anxiety is looking at our expectations. If I expect the unreasonable from myself and I constantly fail, that does feel kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But if I can have a realistic expectation. So a lot of times we're discussing those things in our work as well.
Yeah, realistic expectations, and it's not about being perfect, and that sometimes goes into the all or nothing thinking, black and white.
Yep.
And every time someone comes in and be like, yeah, I like black and white, I love showing them the difference between a black and white image and a grayscale image, and I'm like, well, which one's clearer actually? The grayscale image is more clear. And so that can help in realizing, okay, it's not about just being anxious or not anxious. Again, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
Because we all experience anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
But being like, okay, well, am I maybe a little bit less anxious? Can I still calm myself down in the midst of anxiety? Can I slow things down and choose to respond more? And that can have it help seeing things as more of a continuum versus just all or nothing.
I'll sometimes refer to the light spectrum, where what's between black and white is the full color spectrum.
Yeah.
And is my world just black, white, or is it full of color?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. Or not analogy, but illustration.
Yeah.
When you're working with teens in particular, how do you interface with the parents, the rest of the family?
It's different for every family. There are some family members and parents that are very much so, I completely trust, what's happening in session. I want to provide that safe space for my child, and so a little bit hands off, but then if there's something that, of course is a safety issue, or if I'm, talking with my client, I'm like, I really think this is more of a systemic thing, or something that mom and dad can help with. Then talking with parents and, not breaking confidentiality, like your child said X, Y, and Z, but being like, these are things that we're working towards. These can be helpful to, because a lot of times too, parents can be very overreactive as well, because what they've experienced
Parents
growing
are
up,
also human.
they're also human, absolutely.
Yes, we are.
Which is another thing, having with a lot of teens and then eventually, adults, it's building empathy for self, which a lot of a lot of teens, a lot of adults, young adults, have so much empathy for their parents, and I've noticed that it's harder for them to have empathy for themselves. Of like, to say that you needed something different is not to say parents were all bad.
Right, right,
Not at all.
right.
It's seeing everything in its fullness. Which I've noticed that has been very difficult for some of my clients, and we can hold the tension of both. Empathy for other, empathy for self. And so then with parents sometimes then too, like, I mean, I've had a couple times when I've had really hard conversations with parents. It's like, this is a systemic issue and you're trying to put this all on your child, that your child is the issue, when, well, if there's chaos happening in the home, this is a very normal response for your child. They aren't going to want to maybe branch out and be productive, active members of society and have confidence if they're feeling scared and uncertain in their home. Or if they're feeling like this is all being pinned on them, that's just going to further their own mindset that, you know, they're the problem, they're helpless in fixing it, and they're hopeless in that because they're trying to be responsible for something that's really outside of their control. And so having some of those hard conversations with parents, it's uncomfortable, but I've actually had parents a lot of times be receptive, even in the moment, and sometimes, unfortunately, they don't always implement what they're suggesting. But like when I once was talking to a parent, I was like, yeah, there's a lot of chaos in the home, it seems like. And they're like, yeah, there is a lot of chaos in the home.
Because that statement is not a judgment, that's a description.
Exactly.
It's a description. Absolutely.
And when they can receive it as a description, now we can take a look, what are our options? Yeah,
I love what you said with describing versus judging. That's a huge part. And I think even with anxiety too, when we judge, and I like to go and like paint, I will typically look out my window and I will describe what I see, and then I'll just cast judgments on I see, just in terms of like the weather or whatnot, and to show the difference. And when I'm even just describing, like, I even feel like calmer and more connected when I'm just describing.
yes.
Because judgments, it tends to disconnect you from yourself, but also increase your emotions, which I think that can be it's a protective strategy of like, this is so uncomfortable, I don't want to connect with myself. But when you describe, yes, you are connecting with yourself more, but you're also de-escalating your emotions more too.
Well, it leads to understanding, you know.
Absolutely.
It's just like when you stop and you don't judge, you observe and you describe, it starts to make sense of the narrative and story you find yourself in, of why did I respond the way I did, or why did my kid respond the way that I did. Oh, when I step back and actually look at it, it makes sense. But, you know, when you're judging, everything becomes critical. You shouldn't have done that. You should be like this. Like, it just is unhelpful. And it just totally freezes up understanding, you know. And so when you can just learn to observe, man, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, we don't do it naturally, that's for sure. But I'm great at judging.
It's a gift.
Right?
I'm an Olympian.
Yes.
But yeah, very true. And then it's so much harder to change a characteristic versus changing a behavior or action. That can be so much more manageable. Like, we can make actual changes to an action, but if you just be like, well, I'm just stupid, or I'm just like the worst and I'm awful, well,
there's
it's
not
like,
much remedy for that.
No, not really. Not really. And that doesn't help. That just kind of perpetuates
for sure.
bad actions. And so even with anxiety, like, I shouldn't be anxious. Well, and I like to say, don't be mad at your anxiety. Like, it's okay. Like, don't be mad at yourself. And I think that tends to be more fearful of anxiety, of, oh no, I'm feeling anxious, and catastrophizing what that all might mean. But yeah, when you step back and describe it, it becomes a lot less scary.
And for us in our role, when we hear someone talk about, I started to feel the anxiety, then I did a breathing exercise, or then I checked my expectation, whatever that they might have done. And then I was able to relax. That's really rewarding. To see that person experience a sense of self-regulation. I'm not out of control. Maybe not always comfortable, but I'm not out of control.
Yes. And making that distinction with uncomfortability. There's no
Yes.
bad emotions, but just it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's not scary, it's uncomfortable.
And that uncomfortable isn't dangerous.
Yeah.
No.
It is uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. And that is a big distinction as well.
Yeah, and uncomfortability can be so helpful in growing.
Exactly.
Yes.
And in, change and processing through and with that and tying it back to anxiety, I have, clients too that tend to, they say that, being people pleasers and then wanting to manage their anxiety by taking away discomfort from other people and reframing like uncomfortability is not bad.
Yeah.
That can be very beneficial, and knowing like, okay, also helping yourself dealing with that uncomfortability of letting other people experience their emotions too.
Yeah, and oftentimes uncomfortability is a prerequisite for growth. I mean,
Absolutely.
if you think about exercising or working out, you're going to have to be uncomfortable if you want to improve or get better at something. That's just true for everything in life.
Yeah, I once heard a really great way to frame things of, when you're starting to work out, you're going to naturally feel weak. When you're starting to save money and try to increase your financial prosperity, you're going to feel a little bit more poor. If you're learning something new, you're going to feel, a little bit more stupid or whatnot, which in reframing that's like, it's not a bad thing and that's not who you are. It's more of like, really, it's just uncomfortable, like you said.
Yeah. So, tolerance, being able to be okay with mild uncomfortableness
Yeah,
is part of being a person.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And when that uncomfortableness is interfering, that's when we want to take actions to find how do I decrease that uncomfortableness so that it's not interfering. That I have the freedom to live as is good to live.
Yeah, we
Okay.
don't have to make things.
As a Christian mental health professional, what difference does identifying yourself as Christian make to you in the work you do?
Yeah, well, a huge part is I'm a Christian, and so automatically, that's going to be a part of who I am as a therapist. Because we enter this role fully as being human and fully as being ourselves, because therapy is so much based on the relationship aspect. I'm never dismissing that part of myself. It's fully a part of who I am as a therapist, as I'm relating to my clients. And so, part of my intake process is finding out, okay, where are they, in terms of their own faith journey. A lot of times I see clients that aren't Christian, especially being teens. A lot of teens or young adults, a lot of times they are here because their parents want them here, or their parents have been here in the past, like if they're adults now, and so that's how they found us, even if they might not themselves be Christian, or they're finding out their own journey in that. So I just like to meet everyone right where they're at, kind of like Paul, like he said, we're gonna be be who, what the other is needing, but also still being very much so having integrity to who I am. Like, I'm not going to change who I am, but recognizing that in my role, like, I can meet them right where they're at, no matter what, and that doesn't have to take away from me at all either, or my faith. And even if we never talk about Christianity or God, like oftentimes, like I'll still be praying in my own mind, and especially if I'm stuck, sometimes I'll be like, oh Lord, where should we go with this? And there have been times, even actually a client recently brought up, because we were talking about that as well, and she's like, yeah, there's been times when I've been praying about an answer, and then I come in and like something you say just answers what like I was praying to God about. And so that's just like super cool to see that even if we aren't talking explicitly about faith. And then there are other people who, I also counsel, pastors or those who really, really want a full like faith-based perspective. And so we will go into like how, Jesus experienced all emotions and even anger and incredible sadness. And processing through those things, or processing through how, a lot of what we go through, is in Scripture too, and being able to tie both psychoeducation and Scripture together, and, just helping treat the whole person. And so, having that Christian framework and just letting that like enter in. So it's not super formulaic. I don't think anything I do in therapy is formulaic.
No. As you described, it's embedded in you, and that's when you're in a relationship. You're there.
Yeah.
One of the things I think that is relevant for us when we talk about anxiety, discomfort, etc., is the Christian worldview recognizes things aren't the way they're supposed to be. And so it's not a surprise. And that, in terms of our expectations, as if I expect things are going to be just the way I want them to be, I will be continually disappointed. It's not available.
We live in a broken, fallen world.
Yes, we do, with broken, fallen bodies. And yet, we can be redeemed, and we can have growth, healing, regeneration.
For sure.
And so there's the hope.
And seeing all people as being made in the image of God as well. That every single person, no matter what they've done, has dignity too. They
Even
have
that person that hurt me.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, so being able to, take that step back and try to see that person like Jesus does.
Well, good.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you being with us today
Sure
on the
do. Thank you.
podcast, and we'll have you again in the future at some point, and so we look forward to that day whenever it comes, and thanks for sharing with us today.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed that interview with Sarah Bogdanovich. The full episode, unedited, will be released this coming Friday, so if you want to hear it in its entirety, be sure to tune back in at that point. But if you are still interested in further podcasts, next Monday we will be releasing the next of our interview series with the staff at New Life Resources. Amber Worth will be joining us as we start that series of episodes where we talk with her about her background, what brought her into counseling, and stuff that fuels her as she works with people. So have a great week, take care, and see you soon. Embracing New Life is a production of New Life Resources, a Christian counseling clinic in southeast Wisconsin, whose aim and goal since 1976 has been to provide high-quality professional counseling, psychological, and consulting services from within a Christian framework.